All right, thank you everyone for waiting. So now that it's 5 past, we'll go ahead and start the presentation. Once again, I'm Ben Dellinger. I'm an assignments and leasing coordinator here at the University of Pittsburgh. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Jenna and Corey and Steve, to support me on this presentation for University of Pittsburgh upper class housing selection information. This will apply to guaranteed returning students, and we'll answer some questions that we've been getting. We've built those into the presentation to cover those as we work through this. All right, so here's an overview of what we're going to be covering. We're going to touch on lottery numbers and our point system, how that works. We'll also be looking at our application process and deadlines. This will include the retention process. This will not be applicable to first year only buildings, which I'll go into more detail in just a few moments. We'll also show you what submitting a suite bid entails. We'll share an overview of buildings by group size and what they can accommodate. We'll talk about general room selection in that process and upcoming housing information sessions in December and January. And we'll also share some resources that are available through other departments on campus. And finally, we'll share some frequently asked questions that we built out from pre-submitted questions from those of you who registered and also submitted questions. We built them around those. All right, so to start, what is a lottery number or housing selection number, as it's also sometimes called? So these are randomly generated between 1 and 8,500, with the lowest, like 1 being the best. Again, they're randomly generated. They're not based on when applications are completed. It's completely randomly generated by the system. And we do give a lottery number to all guaranteed rising juniors and sophomores. So first years now will be rising sophomores, and sophomores now will be rising juniors. They'll all be assigned a lottery number. For suite bids, the best lottery number of the group is used. And for general room selection, the lottery number is used to designate the day and time that you select. So that lower that number, the earlier you get to select your slot, your space, your bed space in the general room selection process. Some items of note is that you do not have to pay your housing deposit to view your lottery number. You can view it without having to pay that deposit. And if you're a guaranteed student with the lottery number, you are guaranteed a spot on campus, as long as you pay your housing deposit and complete your housing application before January 20th, 2026. And we'll go over this timeline of events in the next slide. So first, the process starts with, okay, I have my lottery number. First, I need to pay this $325 deposit, then complete the initial housing application, and then choose my steps, my process from there. And I can only choose one. So the options I have are to either pursue a suite or apartment style bid form, right? If I'm interested in working with a group to bid on a suite or apartment style space. I can choose LLC housing, which is learning living community housing. You just indicate interest in an LLC on the initial housing application. There is no supplemental application or form for that. You just interest that, or you say not interested if you do not wish to pursue LLC housing. You can also complete the retention form if you're not in a solely first year building. And also keep in mind that this is subject to change. This could change. Some buildings that are currently first year only could become designated upper class housing, which we will be keeping you all informed with via emails that develops. You can also pursue general room selection, or you can apply to be an RA, or if you're interested in sorority or fraternity, you can pursue Greek life. Again, it's one of those options for pursuing housing as a guaranteed returning student. So what that looks like in terms of timeline is in December, we plan to open up the application in the housing deposit portal through our housing system. So students will be able to log in. We'll send everyone an email, let them know that it's ready. They'll be able to log in, pay that housing deposit, and start and complete the housing application. So they'll have all through winter break and then some time when they return to complete that application, get it submitted. They have until January 20th, 2026. So that is new this year. So that's why it's highlighted in red to underscore the importance of that date. Because if you do not complete your application by that date, you do risk losing your guarantee. And once you lose your housing guarantee, you cannot get it back. Once it's lost for good. So on January 20th, that's the deadline for the housing application. Also the deadline to complete the retention form if you're in an eligible building, which I'll explain in just a moment. It's also your deadline to complete a suite or apartment bid. So all three of those fall on that January 20th deadline. Then a week later, on January 27th, room retention will occur. That's where, if you're in a retention group, your group leader will log into the housing system and select the room that you're retaining. On February 10th, if you're doing an apartment suite, suite or apartment bid, the winners will be posted February 10th. We typically post a printed copy on the windows in front of Panther Central, and we post an electronic version online through the Panther Central website. So you'll have both those options to view with the bid winners. Then suite and apartment selection will occur between February 17th to the 19th. And then if you chose not to pursue those options, you will move to general room selection. Or if you submitted a suite or apartment bid but did not win a bid, you will move to general room selection. Juniors go first, sorted by their lottery number. They go at the beginning of March, and then sophomores will go after spring break, the 17th through 19th. And then this important date at the end, April 1st, is the last day to apply to terminate your application for any reason and get your housing deposit back. After that April 1st date, students may only apply for qualified reasons to get their housing deposit back, such as leaving for a university-approved co-op or study abroad program or military service, things of that nature, documented medical reasons. So to retain, if you're in a space and it's eligible to retain to keep as a rising sophomore or rising junior, here's the things that need to happen. So at least 50% of the current residents must retain the space. So imagine it's a group of 4, 2 of them must be staying. If the other 2, they may be leaving the university or moving off campus. But those students that are looking to retain, they are responsible for finding new students to fill those vacancies, to fill the gaps. So anyone from that group that's retaining is leaving. The students wanting to retain need to fill those students, replace them. We will not replace them for them. Retention form has to be completed by that January 20th deadline, and students residing in an all first-year building will not be eligible to retain. 2 examples of that are Nordenberg and Tower A. Those 2 buildings are first year only, so you will not be able to retain buildings like that. So, and the group leader must access the housing portal to retain the space a week after the application's due on January 27th. So here's a look at the buildings that will be available for retention. You can see there's a good amount of apartment styles available, but also there'll be some singles and doubles available to retain in Lothrop Hall, Tower C, Cormac. Those 2 buildings, the Bridge on Forbes and the Strand with the asterisks to the right of them, those are 3-term commitments. That's the important differentiating factor with those 2 buildings, is that both those you're also committing to live there on this in the summer term as well. So the Bridge on Forbes and the Strand, both those you're agreeing to spring, fall, and summer. So that's something to be aware of with, again, the Bridge on Forbes and the Strand. So we see this a lot. If students are planning on terminating for the summer in those buildings just because they're decided they're not staying for summer classes, then that won't be a reason for their termination to be approved. So they are committing to stay the 3 terms. And again, this is subject to change, where some other buildings will be available for retention. They will be communicated when the retention form goes live. So again, this could change. There could be some buildings that are first year only now that will turn into upper class buildings, but we will communicate that out as that gets finalized. Another important thing of note is with Lothrop and Tower C, some floors in those buildings are first year floors. Those could get moved as well. So if you are approved to retain in Lothrop or Tower C, you could be allowed to retain in the building, but you may have to move rooms or floors. That could also happen with Lothrop and Tower C. So the process of how the suite and apartment style bids work is that you choose your group size first. So between 1 to 7 members, you designate 1 student as the group leader. And this does not have to be the person with the best lottery number, because the system automatically pulls the best lottery number from the group. You want this to be the group leader to be the person who's the most responsible, most dependable, because they're the one that has to go in and make the selections and finalize it for all the students. So the group leader has to invite all the members and has to also make sure that all the members have accepted the invitations, like in step 4. So if any invitations are not accepted, those students were not valid parts of the group. So that is something that the group leader needs to be aware of, that they're making sure that all students that received an invitation do accept it, that it says that they're a member, not that they're just an invited student. Then the bid's complete. Then housing, we will sort through all the bids submitted, and this is where we use the lottery number, but also the points system, which I haven't mentioned yet, but I will show a table on the next slide that will give you a better idea of how that works along with the lottery number to rank the bids. So then again, we post the bid winners February 10th online and outside Panther Central. And then the suite apartment style selection occurs February 17th through 19th. So an important thing where some students get confused about these bids is that they think they're bidding on a specific building, like Ruskin, for example, but you're not. You're actually bidding on a group size. So if you're making a bid with 3 students total, that's what you're bidding on. You're bidding on 3 person size suites or apartments, which I'll show you. So how the point system works is it factors in the class of the students in the group as well as the lottery number. So looking at the scenario with one group 1 of all rising sophomores, which each sophomore gets 2 points, and group 2 is a mixed group of sophomores and a junior. Sophomores get 2 points, junior gets 3 points, and a third group, which is all rising juniors, where they all get 3 points. So first we sort by the points and then the lottery numbers among that. So group 3 would actually be ranked first, and they would be first on that bid selection, the bid suite that they're doing for the apartment style bid. So their lottery number, even though the best lottery number is kind of on the higher end, not as good with 5,000, they would still select before all the 8-point, 7-point, 6-point groups, right? With them being 9. But any students in the 9-point groups with a lottery number that's smaller or better than, or closer to 1, they would get to select before this group here, group 3. So that's how it's ranked. So it's by all the points, then the lottery numbers. So that's how that works with the suite and apartment bid winners. That's how they're sorted by housing. And here's a look at the different sizes that are accommodated in the different buildings. So we don't have many one person apartments suites available. There's just a handful in Center Plaza and Ruskin. But then we have more options when it goes into two people groups, 3 person groups. We also have a group here of 3 term, right? Remember we mentioned earlier the Strand and the Bridge. You're also coming to the summer semester, but there are 3 person groups spaces available in there. 4 person spaces available in Bouquet, Center Plaza. A thing of note here is that at this time we do not have any 5 person spaces, group spaces available. So this could change. This is subject to change, but we will announce this as this is confirmed. And then for 6 and 7, the larger groups, those are only available in McCormick Hall at this time. So this is subject to change, but this is what we're quite certain of at the moment are these accommodations in terms of group size and where they'll be located. All right. So if you don't move forward, if you decide not to pursue the suite or apartment bid, right, or you don't win a bid, you move to general room selection or GRS. So again, this is if you didn't win a bid or you weren't interested, you proceed to this. And this includes all spaces left over from suite or apartment style selection. So there are students that decide either they dissolve their group for suite or apartment style bids, or they go in and they don't see a spot that they want, so they don't select, and then they move to general selection. So there will still be some suite and apartment style spaces up for grabs in general room selection, along with general rooms like singles and doubles that are located in Lothrop and Tower C. So this, when you get to select in general room selection, is based on your lottery number. So rising juniors, again, they go first between March 3rd and 4th based on their lottery number. And then after spring break, sophomores get to select March 17th through 19th based on their lottery number. So that's where your lottery number comes in, if you're doing general room selection. And some other on-campus communities and opportunities that we also mentioned you can pursue are the LLCs, or the upper class living learning communities. So again, all you have to do for that is when you're completing your initial housing application, you just indicate interest in one of the available LLCs. So you just select that as an option. There's a drop-down list as part of the application. You would select if you're interested in one. Otherwise, you would just select that you're not interested in an LLC. There's also Greek Life again, and that's managed by Student Affairs, as is being an RA through ResLife. So that is the link if you're interested in applying to become an RA as a guaranteed returning student. Again, don't feel like you have to write these down or memorize these. This is being recorded and this will be posted to the PC website once the recording has been processed and has been uploaded. So in terms of events we have upcoming through December and January, is we do have an LLC housing webinar scheduled December 18th. That will be at 10 a.m. The link has not been generated yet, but that will be made and sent out as soon as that webinar is up and ready to go. There are 2 more in-person tabling sessions that we have planned in the Towers lobby. So January 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So that will be when residence halls reopen after winter break and students and parents are coming back. Stop by and see us in the Towers lobby if you have additional questions. And then the Friday before the application is due, January 16th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So please keep an eye on your emails. Most of you have already made a habit of this already. That's great. So we recommend that you be checking this regularly if you're not already. And here's some other resources to help you in your decision making. So the Housing Services website is still undergoing some construction, some maintenance, some updates, but that's the website. Again, it's through the PC website, or the Panther Central website there, as you see in the URL, the pc.pitt.edu. Also, if you have general questions about building details, amenities, application, process questions, Panther Central is available 24/7. I will share their phone number as well in a moment on a following slide, but that is their contact us webpage if you prefer to submit a web-based inquiry to them through the pc.pitt.edu contact us page. If you have questions specific to the Honors LLC, that is managed by the Honors College. So that is their website there. So we direct questions to them. Any questions that need to go to Residence Life regarding engineering, then these are LLCs again. So the engineering LLC, gender and sexuality, nursing / health science, those can go to Student Affairs, ResLife at Student Affairs. If any students require accommodations or they need to update or make changes to accommodations, that's through the Office of Wellbeing in DRS. So that's their website down there to contact them. And then also, if you have any questions about sustainability, especially related to housing, that's their website down there, that they cover on their website things like composting schedule, recyclables. They also go over their schedule for events they have in the upcoming future. And then if you are still thinking about going off campus, there's a link for off-campus student services. And with that, I will mention that even if students are considering moving off campus for their sophomore, junior, senior year, we still recommend that if you are a guaranteed returning student, you still complete an application, even though you think you may pursue off-campus housing, because that way you can maintain your guarantee in case your off-campus housing does fall through, you still have your guarantee as backup. So if you complete your application, but you do find off-campus housing, you still can terminate for any reason before April 1st. So that gives you time to pursue both options, but without losing your guarantee. So that's what we recommend. So now let's move on to some FAQs that, again, we built out from questions that were submitted as people were registering. So we see this question often about, can non-guaranteed and guaranteed students apply and live together? No, they cannot, because guaranteed and non-guaranteed students apply separately. It's a different process. So like non-guaranteed students, they do not go through suites or retention or general room selection. They go through their own process when they have their own separate application when that opens later. So non-guaranteed students apply after we've assigned all guaranteed housing. And then non-guaranteed are offered what's left. So we also get asked from students that say, I require an accommodation. Can my friends join me? So again, this leads back to that Office of Wellbeing and DRS. If you require an accommodation, you do have to contact the Office of Wellbeing before the housing deadline, before January 20th. And they are unable to guarantee that roommates can join in accommodations. And some students, they may be planning ahead to study abroad or join a co-op in spring 2027. Here's what we recommend: that you still complete your housing application, pay your deposit, retain your guarantee, and select housing for the fall. And then if you find out in the fall you're certain you're not coming back for spring 2027, you apply to terminate your spring housing during the fall semester. So before December 1st, next fall, you would apply, hey, I'm going off campus in the spring. I need to terminate my spring housing only. And that way you have the opportunity to still retain your guarantee. So how can seniors and transfer students acquire their own campus housing? Now, seniors and transfer students are non-guaranteed housing students. So they can apply to be placed on the non-guaranteed upper class wait list. And then when that application opens, again, after all guaranteed housing is completed, then we reach out to them. They have the chance to apply to a separate application, and based on availability, they can be offered housing. So like we mentioned earlier about some options for 3-term housing, we do get questions about that. Again, we just want to reiterate that that is available in both the Bridge and the Strand. So the Bridge on Forbes and the Strand are both 3-term commitments. So fall, spring, and summer semester. So all other on-campus housing, the residence halls, apartment style, they're all 2-term, fall and spring only. And we're also asked frequently if students can still use financial aid for both options. Yes, they can. Students can use financial aid for the 3-term housing and 2-term housing. And frequently also asked, what are our chances, or what are my chances of getting this whichever space housing? Like, what are my chances of getting a single apartment? What are my chances of getting an apartment in Ruskin? So we're not able to calculate those chances of any student receiving a specific location, because we have to consider the total number of students apply, students that retain. We also have to work with students that are getting special accommodations, and we have to consider the total number of bids. So we're not able to tell what anyone's specific individual chances are because of this. So what we recommend is that when we're getting closer to selection, that you have your options researched and planned out before you get on to select. So keeping in mind, you may not, like it based on your lottery number or what have you, when you're going on to select, you may not see your first choice available. So be prepared for that. So we advise students to be prepared that, okay, what's my backup? What are my backup choices? What do I like about these places? And be ready to pivot as you're going through and making selections. All right, so our final reminders are, again, above all else, complete the housing application by January 20th, 2026. Again, we expect that to open in early December, and we will let everyone know when it's open via their PIT email. So keep an eye on that, right? That's why I put in number 3, check your PIT email daily. But again, if you have any questions, like specific questions specific to you, your situation, your student, that were not addressed in this presentation, please reach out to Panther Central. This is their number. I know I shared the website to fill out an electronic inquiry earlier, but their phone number, again, is also manned 24/7, and that is 412-648-1100. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending. We really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to join us. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up the presentation.